A study by Roost, the tourism office in Lake Placid, found 95% of the visitors to the Adirondacks in 2021 were white. 95%. Meanwhile, white people make up just 60% of all New Yorkers, never mind Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, or other more diverse places nearby. An event in Blue Mountain Lake actually buses people of color to the mountains to have fun outdoors and hopefully want to come back. That's today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the St. Lawrence County Community Development Program, now accepting applications for the Head Start program to prepare children ages 3 to 5 for school, online at slccdp.org/head-start.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, October 8th. First up, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has come out against establishing a missile defense site at Fort Drum near Watertown. That's something Representative Elise Stefanik has been pushing for. Fort Drum was picked as the East Coast preferred site in 2021 if a third site were to be built. But as the Watertown Daily Times reports, Defense Secretary Austin recently wrote letters to the Armed Services Committees about the idea. He said the Pentagon, quote, strongly objects to mandating the DoD to build a third missile site. He wrote the DoD doesn't need it operationally, and that building one could cost upwards of $5 billion. Stefanik criticized Austin's objections in a press release, calling it, quote, unacceptable yet unsurprising. She said threats from Iran, North Korea, and China are growing. Austin is a former commander of Fort Drum. Think about your first time in a pair of skis or paddling in a canoe. You probably remember this. It can be intimidating. It's a learning experience, feeling safe and comfortable in the outdoors. It's a barrier to participation. Another barrier people of color feel, seeing mostly white people out hiking and biking and skiing. It feels exclusive, intimidating. As David Escobar reports, one Adirondack festival hopes to change that narrative through inclusive outdoor education.
That's the sound of paddlers hitting the water on Marion Carey Pond, a small, shallow pond at the Adirondack Experience Museum in Blue Mountain Lake.
Everybody paddle forward and put your hand right on top. Now reach forward and pull. That's it, just like that.
Interpretive assistant Mike Nerney is teaching first-time canoeists the very basics.
At this little pond, we're putting people in canoes, many who have never been in a canoe at all, and it's a great chance for them to have the experience of being in a boat.
The canoeing lessons are part of the museum's Experience for All event, now in its third year. It's meant to introduce outdoor activities like paddling, biking, and fishing to beginners. Nerney says the first time in a canoe can be challenging, so a little instruction can help people feel more comfortable on the water.
So we want them to carry this with them as in, I can do this. This is certainly possible. With a little practice, I can be good at it, and I want to start to enjoy another aspect of the wilderness.
But the day's not just about learning outdoor skills. Adirondack Park Agency board member Benita Laudiao says it's also about community outreach.
Everywhere I go, I'll ask people, have you ever heard about the Adirondack Park within the state and outside the state? And so many people don't know it exists.
To help with that, Laudiao helped organize over a dozen buses to bring visitors from outside the park for today's event. Many of them are people of color. She says many white New Yorkers see the Adirondacks as a go-to for outdoor recreation, but Black and Brown community members don't always feel that same connection to the park.
When people of color come up here and they don't see us, then we don't feel welcome.
A study from the Regional Office of Sustainable Tourism says that around 95% of the park's visitors are white. Brandon Dale says that lack of diversity is one reason some people hesitate to explore the park.
There are significant barriers, right, to getting into the outdoors, whether it's you didn't have people who looked like you outside, you didn't have a community, you don't have the gear, you don't have the knowledge, or don't feel confident going out, or you don't feel safe.
Dale lives in New York City, but visits the Adirondacks regularly to hunt and fish. He's also an ambassador for Brown Folks Fishing and Hunters of Color, two groups working to create more inclusive spaces for outdoor sports. Today, he's teaching visitors how to cast a fly fishing line.
Fly fishing, so basically...
June Beckford came on the bus from Clifton Park near Albany. She follows along as Dale shows her the basics of fly casting. It's a bit of a learning curve, but Beckford says she feels inspired by the lesson.
So the experience was great, and to see someone of color doing fly fishing.
What you're going to do is point the tip of the rod down to the grass, and you'll make a big Z. Yep, and you can see that as you're making that Z, this line is kind of being taken out of your hands.
Fly casting lessons are only part of the picture for Dale. He says today's event is about building relationships with the next generation of black and brown outdoor enthusiasts.
The outdoors are for everyone, and brown folks, we are out here. We've been out here, and we literally will stay out here. And I think just getting more people that message and letting more people see that it is not only available to you, but it is 100% accessible to you in the right community and in the right space is really why organizations like this need to continue, and we need more support and more people to kind of carry the torch.
Beyond learning how to paddle or fly fish, organizers hope that today's event encourages visitors to feel a stronger connection to the Adirondacks, and to know that the outdoors are for everyone. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio, and Blue Mountain Lake.
One super cool bonus story. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. Through a side door at the Westport Library, which sits a stone's throw from Lake Champlain, there's a small spiral staircase that leads to a ladder. Climb up and you'll find yourself in the library's clock tower. This clock has been running for well over a century. To turn the seconds into minutes, into hours, the clock has to be wound by hand every couple of days. Amy Feiereisel went up there with the clock's current timekeeper just as the clock was about to strike the half hour. She sent back this herd up north.
It's a little bit of a climb. My name is Michael Fergut. I'm one of the trustees of the Westport Library Association, and we happen to be in the clock tower at the Westport Library, looking at a mechanical clock, not electronic. It's been doing that for 118 years, and to my knowledge, it's never really stopped. It requires someone physically every 78 hours-ish winding it to raise the weights that then drive the mechanics. There's one set of weights that runs the clock. There's another heavier set of weights that powers the bell that you just heard. If I had a heart attack and no one could step in, eventually this weight would land on the floor, that weight would land down at the bottom of the stairwell, and it would stop. Until someone came, wound it up, and readjusted the time. Alan Beal had been doing it before me for a number of years. I've been doing this since December of 21, and twice a week, coming in, winding it to raise the weights, adjusting it subtly, because as temperatures change and the tension changes, it can lose a couple of seconds every day or so. It might lose a minute or more, and then you can adjust for that. And then you get interesting things like daylight savings time, and you have to adjust it because it's a mechanical clock. You have to actually move the hands to the new proper time. It's a wonderful reminder that the present moment exists within a continuum of history. So like Alan used to wind this, I'm winding it now. Rick Rockefeller used to wind it. It gives me the privilege of coming back often enough so that I get to see difference. Like if you have a niece or nephew that you see once every year and you see that they change, get to see the difference coming up here on a regular basis, get to see the seasons changing, even though it may still be 2:30 in the afternoon. It's very, very different. The orientation of the windows, get to see the relationship with the sun. And it's just a nice reminder of that we are in the present moment.
That was Michael Ferget, a member of the Westport Library's board who's in charge of keeping the mechanical clock wound at the library. Amy Feiereisel produced this Heard Up North. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Mark Corey of Watertown and Ben Cato of Jay. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.